This Late Night Linux Family podcast is made possible by our patrons. Go to latenightlinux.com/support for details of how you can join them. Support us on Patreon for access to ad-free episodes and early releases. That's latenightlinux.com/support. Hello and welcome to episode 119 of Linux After Dark. I'm Joe.
I'm Chris.
I'm Gary.
And I'm May.
Welcome back all. May, you want to do something ridiculous.
Yes, so the way that the heat is set up in my apartment, anytime it gets below about 4 degrees, it is no different to run a space heater versus running the central heating system. It's the same cost to me, it's just resistive heating. But, I thought, I don't want to just use resistive heating. Like, if that's the most efficient thing that I can do, I might as well do something with that energy, right?
That's about 39 degrees in real money.
Yes, exactly. About 40 degrees. So, I've got like tons of old computer parts. How can I build the best space heater that does more than nothing with the electricity that it spends?
So you're essentially trying to build an old, inefficient computer and run it at full load to warm yourself up.
Exactly.
So May is going to go and buy a Prescott Pentium 4 3.6 and run an Nginx server.
No, are you crazy? Getting new computer hardware is impossible right now. I'm just going to use the stuff that I've already got.
But ultimately, what we're looking for is processes that don't go for nothing, right? Because obviously you could just run stress or something and you'd get your load, but it would be basically synthetic load.
Well, there's also how do you automate it? Because once it gets above 40 degrees here, it makes more sense to let my HVAC system take over because it's got a heat pump in it.
So the shittiest Home Assistant type setup we can think of. But realistically, the first thing Joe said was mine some kind of cryptocurrency, which would be obviously fantastic. But realistically, what kind of processes are there that can generate this load and you would feel you would gain from as well?
Well, I don't need to gain. It just needs to be less of a loss than putting it through some copper wire.
Surely, if you're going to run your computer at load, you want to be doing it for a purpose, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can find a purpose of doing that. I mean, could you be folding protein? Is that still a thing?
I mean, folding at home is absolutely still a thing. I think that folding at home would be the way to do it, or the one that came out of Stanford that I'm forgetting the name of.
But you need to automate it turning off once the temperature goes above the 39, 40, whatever it is, Fahrenheit.
Exactly.
A sophisticated training program for Mischief, your cat.
She's getting pretty old. I don't think she's going to do much of that anymore.
Right. Well, clearly you need some sort of temperature sensor and some sort of cron job then.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. A temperature sensor and a smart plug, and just have nothing you care about on the computer. If temperature is 40 degrees, cut power, done.
Could you be smarter though? And could you dial down the frequency of the CPU based on the output of the sensor? So you change the governor or anything like that rather than doing a full shutdown?
No, that doesn't make any sense at all. Once it is above 40 degrees and the heat pump takes over, there's no reason to use resistive heating anymore. So there's no reason for the computer to be running.
You just want it to be completely off. Okay, well then there you go then. You've got your shutdown signal. So yeah, that's it. Run some kind of protein folding. Get yourself an AliExpress special temperature sensor that you can interface with a smart plug and then have A speak to B and it's done. That's easy, right?
What, and then set it in the BIOS to turn back on when there's power?
Oh yeah, you gotta turn it back on. Won't this like corrupt the hard drive or something if it's doing something right when it gets shut down?
Run it to boot to RAM. That'll be all right, right?
Oh, but then what happens when the software updates?
Who cares? Stick it on its own VLAN, fine.
It doesn't need an internet connection, does it? Well, it does for folding. So yeah, maybe I've... yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe you could run both folding algorithms or whatever at once, and then it'll get really hot.
Well, I don't think you can use more than 100% of your CPU and GPU.
Yeah, you can. Just download more CPU. It'll be fine.
How many cores does this machine have that you're thinking of using?
Let's see. I could use either a 7th or 8th gen i7.
Right.
7th, definitely. That's going to get hot.
what's the wattage that you're drawing to power this computer at full load compared to how much an actual space heater pulls from the wall?
So an actual space heater at lowest will be like 700 watts.
Wow.
And I would want to put in a couple of GPUs that I've got lying around to try and get the PC close to that. Maybe 500-ish in the range.
Right.
Because you also have to factor in the power supply losing a bunch of wattage just in conversion.
Mm-hmm.
But the beauty of this idea is that any inefficiency is lost as heat, generally speaking, right?
Exactly. It's perfect. Now, for those of you in the audience saying, get a better heat pump, they go down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit now, you're right. I'm still working on that, but this was a much more fun idea.
So I've seen that with Nux where you can set it to turn back on when it sees power again. But can you do that with desktops? I've never tried.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Right.
really common.
The Esprimo special £50 machine has a selection of power states when you... It's a setting in the BIOS, basically, power loss recovery. You can choose it to be off, on, or the last state that it was in when the power was switched off.
Right. Well, it seems like we've got you sorted then.
Yeah, I suppose if I want to do something really fancy, I could do it in an Ansible playbook so that when the hard drive does corrupt, I can reinstall easily.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's a full infrastructure as code, smart space heater that you can now market to people and sell.
Space heater as a service.
Well, I know that people were doing Bitcoin mining for essentially the same purpose a few years ago. I think someone was selling a product in Russia for that.
Mm.
But I don't want to mine Bitcoin. That's lame.
Or any other shit coins, yeah. And you don't want to train AI bullshit.
And there's no reason to do that on a GTX 1060 or an RX 484 gig either.
I mean, you could.
Yeah, but it just wouldn't be very good.
Mm. It'd get hot though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, good point.
You could hot swap the tasks that you're doing if you're actually there and attentive. You could play a bit of gaming or render something on it just because it generates the heat as well.
Well, I have better computers for that. This is the one that's supposed to heat my bedroom because it's the farthest away from the heat unit.
Then it's two birds with one stone, surely. You know, you still get the rendered video and the enjoyable gaming might be a bit stretched with that spec. But that's what I'd be doing. I'd be saying, well, yeah, okay, when I'm using unattended space heating, then I'll just run something unattended. But if there's a computing task that I could complete that would generate load, then I'd do it on that.
And then in the middle of it, it'll go above 40 degrees Fahrenheit and it'll just shut off.
Well, I also want to do something stupid. I think I want to buy a new laptop. Not new. I'm thinking probably 2023-ish vintage because I don't want to spend too much, but I want something small, portable, with good battery life. Don't say it. And a good screen. Don't say it. Good speakers would be a bonus. Don't say it. To run proper Linux on it.
Oh, you ruined it, Jay. I had the perfect answer for you. And then you said it has to run Linux.
Yeah, did it start with an M maybe?
And end with AcBook Pro?
Or AcBook Air, one of the two, yes.
No, I do not want to buy a Mac. I've got an M1 Air and that is fine. Now, the reasoning behind this is a bit spurious, but I've got my 11th gen XPS 13, 11th gen i7 that is, with 16 gigs of RAM, and that is a perfectly adequate machine for day-to-day use. But all of my other older stuff, like my 8th gen Intel laptops, I've got a 7th gen ThinkPad, they feel pretty old now. And that is quite a privileged thing to say, but I kind of feel like I have to stay on top of things. If I'm going to talk about this stuff for a living, I ought to have fairly up-to-date hardware. And so I'm thinking replace the 11th gen XPS with something better and then relegate that to be like main test machine, like testing OpenSUSE or some other distro on. Having something really quite nice and fairly up-to-date to do testing on. Is this making me sound really, I think the Americans say, bougie?
Yeah.
I mean, possibly, but you have to realize that, you know, these 8th gen machines are 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I don't think of them like that often, but even for the fact that we like to stretch the life cycle of the stack of laptops. You know, if we were having this conversation about 5 years ago, we would consider machines of that vintage to be significantly towards the end of their expected lifespan and be relegated to sort of, oh, I wonder how it runs on this old thing type. So I don't think your instinct is incorrect, really.
So that leads me to the question of what should I buy for my new daily driver? And I had a look around and I asked one friend, and that friend said to me, a T14. That's the only laptop they would recommend to someone. And like the generation you get depends on how much you want to spend. But the problem is I only want a 1080p screen. I don't want high DPI. That's one of the reasons I don't want to use the framework. I mean, it's also, you know, fuck framework and everything. And also it's not hugely reliable, I've found. So I could use that, but I don't want to. It's too high resolution, the screen. I want a 1080-ish, you know, not 1080. What is it, like 1920 by 1200 or something? That would be perfect. But yeah, those T14s, at least the 1080-ish panel is only ever 400 nits, and I want 500 nits because I'm bougie, as I said. Which leads me to an XPS Plus, I think it was called, the XPS 13 replacement. I've been watching some reviews of them from back in those days, and so it's only a year newer than my current XPS, but it's like twice as powerful. But it doesn't have a function row of keys. It's got like this capacitive thing, and the touchpad sort of is just an area of glass with nothing to kind of tell you where it is. But I think I could get used to that, and the keyboard's changed. And I think I've said previously they ruined the XPS, so it would be hypocritical to buy one.
Gee, it really sounds like you just need to buy the best laptop on the market right now. For 6 years running.
I'm not buying a Mac. I've got an M1 Air. It's fine for the Apple stuff that I need and to see the progress of Asahi. And, you know, that's fine. I mean, obviously, I would love to get another Mac because I want all the computers in the world, but I'm not going to daily drive a Mac.
How much is it going to set you back for this machine?
That XPS, like, I don't know, 450 maybe, which is quite a lot.
It is quite a lot, isn't it?
It's more than I want to spend. So, yeah, that's why I've, you know, there are too many compromises to spend that much.
Does Asus have anything in the range right now? Or back then? They have everything.
I don't know what, I haven't had an Asus machine for a long time.
I think usually it's like you have to find the hack or two that you need to get Linux running really well, and then you just write that down and do it on every distro you install on it ever.
Yeah, like I had an 11th gen ZenBook 13, and that was a really nice machine. OLED display, 16 gigs of RAM. That was really good. If you could find one of the ZenBook 14s with an OLED of that generation, that might be good. But then, of course, they get into having 2K, 2.8K displays, which is something you don't want because you refuse to run a desktop environment that's been maintained in the past 10 years.
Exactly. And also, it's just a waste of pixels. I can barely see like 6 inches in front of me. My eyes are so old and shit, and I refuse to get glasses. So, like, 1080p is fine for a laptop.
And I hate to break it to you, Joe, newer desktops have this thing called scaling.
Right, but why am I going to drive more pixels, use more battery life, to then fucking scale it down to the equivalent of 720p looking? That's ridiculous. Oh, it looks extra sharp. I don't give a shit.
You're not just consuming text, right? You'll be consuming videos on it and things. And all right, you know, you won't watch everything in 4K or whatever, but...
Nobody needs more than 1080p.
Well, but the laptop manufacturers don't agree with you. And Gary's right. If you go to a ZenBook, the OLED screen is their USP. They're fighting a crowded market. They need something to, you know, set them apart. And that's one of the things that they've really hung their hat on. So that's going to make that tricky. And there aren't a lot of choices for good, well-built laptops. I think the person you spoke to said, just get a ThinkPad, you know, tends to be the general advice if you're not going to take a bite of the juicy fruit.
Are people still doing the screen upgrades for ThinkPads? Can you find a better 1080p panel for it?
Maybe. I did think about that, and I saw a Reddit thread that didn't seem very fruitful on that front, but that was only very, very brief research on that score. What about a Z13? Now, they, on paper, are an amazing little machine. I've seen them in the flesh, as it were, and they look amazing. I would really, really want one. But then, Gary, you had one, and it was rubbish.
Well, yeah, mine was a first-gen Z13, and I had many, many hardware issues with that machine. And Shane from Hybrid Cloud Show also has one of those machines. He's had a bunch of hardware weirdness with it as well, so I don't think that it was an isolated case for my laptop.
Yeah, it seems like you just had too many problems, because I was looking, I think it was like maybe a Gen 2 AMD that's got like a monster AMD CPU in it. Is that the one you had?
Mine was a Gen 1 AMD with a Ryzen 5 of some description. And yeah, it was a really, really nice laptop, I must admit. The display was excellent. Battery life was excellent. The touchpad was really good. So the closest to a Mac trackpad that I've ever used. But it just wasn't reliable. I mean, in 9 months, that thing had 3 motherboards.
Yeah, that's not right. Is that the one that literally caught on fire at one point?
Yes, it did literally catch on fire at one point. I took the bottom off because it had overheated, and there was just molten components around the CPU.
Are you sure that you haven't got the opposite of the Midas touch, the Scheisser's touch?
Well, like I say, I'd like to believe it was an isolated incident, but Shane from Hybrid Cloud Show has also had multiple replacement motherboards in his Z13.
Right.
Do you think it's not built well in terms of the chassis combined with what's inside it, or is it just poor soldering on the board? What's going on?
I genuinely don't know. I mean, it felt like a well-built machine. It was incredibly solid, 0 deck flex on the keyboard, everything else. So I think it was just a poorly designed board, perhaps.
So the Gen 2 would surely be just fine, right?
I'm sure they fixed all of it.
It's put me off. I mean, could I put up with a 400 nit display?
Probably.
I mean, how often do you sit outside in the sunshine using your laptop, Joe?
Well, you see, the problem comes from my phone. My phone is like 1,000 nits or something, and I never have it on full brightness, except when I'm like out in the sun. But I do tend to have it brighter than I probably should, because I don't have automatic brightness, because nobody tells me what brightness my phone is but me. So again, my stubbornness there. So what I do, I find myself like, getting a message, checking that, then looking back at the laptop, and my eyes are just like, what? It's like in the dark. Why? And I try and put the brightness up, and it just doesn't go any higher.
You're such an old man.
I know. I want just a unicorn. I want like a really bright 1080p screen, like really fast processor, and all-day battery life, and it not to be a Mac.
Would you be looking for Intel or AMD?
Whatever is the best for that particular generation. I think around that time, AMD was better. So probably AMD, but I think that there are some Intel CPUs that will compete.
I mean, that Intel are planning to drop the P&E core soon, because even they have realized that maybe that wasn't such a great thing to chase after, and just have unified cores.
Like Sun before them, they realized that it was a bad idea.
Well, even Apple have changed how they're doing their P&E core business, haven't they? So maybe that era was a mistake.
I mean, I did have until recently an Ultra 7 165U, whatever it's called now, which had P&E cores, so 14 cores, 12 P2E or something, I don't know. I never noticed it really in day-to-day, any of the problems that you had, but I didn't ever use it for audio work, and also the webcam didn't bloody work on it. So, don't go too new, because you start getting things like that. The webcam is pull a Git repository from Intel. It's a U6U or P6U or something. You pull the Git repository, you compile it, and you use DKMS to install it. And every kernel upgrade from backports would introduce one fix and break something else. So at one point you could load Cheese and get one photo before the whole thing corrupted, and you had to restart Cheese. Then that stopped working. Then I could get live video upside down for about 3 seconds, and then it would just stop. So don't be careful what you wish for, Joe. Don't go too far into the modern era with whatever you manage to pick up, because that machine, by the time I stopped using it, was nearly a year old.
That's why I'm thinking 2023. That gives me 2.5, 3 years for Linux to catch up. So I really don't know what to do. I might just do nothing. As ever, the easiest action to take is inaction. And so I don't need anything, but I just thought it might be nice.
There isn't an obvious candidate. That's the thing, you see. In previous discussions that we might have, apart from the elephant in the room that we keep not mentioning, especially if a certain manufacturer had released something very close to the budget which you've mentioned. So it's trickier now to pin yourself down to something.
Well, in the past, Joe didn't want such a bright screen at 1080p. The problem is you changed, Joe. You're different now.
You know what has just dawned on me?
Yeah.
What do I think was peak laptop? 11th gen XPS 13. Why don't I just buy another one? I mean, they're cheaper now. Why don't I just have one to test stuff and one for daily driver?
Because then you still have a 6-year-old daily driver, which doesn't resolve your problem at all.
Well, it does, because I'm fine with it as a daily driver. It's fine.
So ultimately, what's your problem with the current one again? Remind us.
The problem is that I don't have something that I can use as a test laptop that is like even vaguely modern and reliable. You know, I've got the old ThinkPads, which are perfectly reliable, but they're getting long in the tooth.
So get a test laptop that you hate then? So that your test laptop is newer and you can do the things that you hate on it?
No.
Or just use the framework that you don't want to rely on as a daily driver as the test laptop.
But the problem is I side with Joe a little bit here because he happens to have a model that has an NVMe controller on the main board, which is problematic. And I've had a laptop like that, and it is a pain in the arse because the kernel keeps slightly altering and advanced power state management will change and you have to hack things in and it's annoying. I get where you're coming from with that, Joe.
Yeah, I'm not passing fucking kernel parameters to get the NVMe drive to work. Like, no, I'm not having that nonsense. That makes it unreliable that I have to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't make it a particularly good test machine, does it?
Exactly. I mean, maybe I could get another NVMe drive that...
It costs as much as the computer right now.
Yeah, well, I have got a cheap, I think it's like a 128 or something, just kicking around that I could put in that I bought for... I think it was used, but lightly used for like 10 quid or something just before all this kicked off. So maybe I could put that in it and use that as a test machine, maybe. But, obviously I want to buy something cool.
Anything that's cool doesn't have a screen that you want.
No, seemingly not. Right, well, I suppose I'll just buy all the supply of those 11th gen XPS 13s and just use them forever.
Or, just buy the best laptop for the last 6 years and give up.
One day. One day I'll give in and just start using a Mac. But that day is not today. Right, well, we better get out of here then. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Until then, I've been Joe.
I've been Chris.
I've been Gary.
And I've been May.
See you later.